Hello. Um, Today I would like to just talk about our perceptions and are we focusing necessarily on the right things? I got an email, and it was a valid email, so it's not a criticism of this email, but I thought it was a very valid email, but one I think it would be really good to share. Where we've been doing the conference last November, and we've been doing workshops on education and schools, and I also did a workshop on school refusal. And this particular person, I think, got a little bit upset about saying school refusal and the word school refusal, because it's a matter of actually my child's not going to school because she can't or they can't, not because they're refusing to. And is there not another way we can use the word school refusal? And she has given me a name of an author who has put it in a different way, which is all very valid. Um, but when we're talking about perceptions, it's which angle are we coming from? What way are we looking at things? Now, if we're looking at it in terms of, well, my child can't, it's not that they're refusing, they just can't, and then we get ourselves upset about it. We're taking ownership of somebody's upsetting us for using a terminology that we know is not quite right. And so why are they using that particular terminology? Well, from the last workshop I did, we talked about EBSA, emotional based school avoidance. So the local authorities and everybody else is talking about school avoidance. And I think it's only right to sort of say, well, we need to address what the schools are looking at is a school avoidance. How that's looked upon is completely different, and again, it will be based on your perceptions. My child was out of school, my daughter was out of school for 18 months, more or less, on and off, but for a straight, more or less, 18 months. Um, she was not, or she was avoiding school because school to her wasn't safe. It wasn't a safe place. She didn't feel comfortable there. Nobody was listening to her. So she refused to go to school. But it wasn't her choice to refuse. It was a matter of she couldn't go to school because of how it made her feel. But it was still a form of school avoidance. And where we have to be very careful in what the schools are looking at, and I know in Andrew's talk very briefly at the conference, he mentioned this, that sometimes it's the parents who refuse to send the children to school because of how they're feeling. And again, from perception, we could take offence to that because it's saying, well, I'm not refusing to send my child, but I'm refusing to send my child into an unsafe environment. Again, slightly different, and look at the perceptions of that. And we have to justify within ourselves as to what's going on now. Because we do have, and I have met parents, and so has Andrew, where it has been more convenient not to send children to school. So it's a matter of really look at yourself and say, am I doing the right thing for my child? And I have said to many parents, if your child is screaming, kicking, shouting, and you're having to get teachers to drag the child off you, is that really the right thing to be doing? Maybe we shouldn't be sending our child to school that day, because we're potentially building in education trauma. Because they're just going to associate this horrible feeling of somebody dragging me away from my parents into an environment I don't feel safe. We have to explore. We have to explore, why is my child not wanting to go to school? So for me, I put a range of measures in place for my daughter. I took away her beloved makeup. She loved her makeup, and I said, well, if you're not going to school, you're not having your makeup. If you're not doing this, I put things in place that I knew that if I took something away that she really, really liked, then potentially, if she was just not wanting to go to school, then it's a matter of, I like that more, so therefore I'm going to go to school. None of these strategies worked, and there was a range of strategies from, okay, don't go in now, but we'll go in later, and later comes and it never happens because something else has come up that stops her from going into school. But you're testing all the time to sort of say, is this an avoidance, or is it a really, really cannot get myself out? It's making me physically sick. It's making me feel really, really poorly. And when we've actually analysed that, then we can feel really confident in ourselves as that we're doing the right thing. Our child can't go into school at this minute in time. We need to be talking about the EBSA pathway. This isn't truancy. This isn't the parents keeping the child off just because it's convenient to not have the kick-off in the mornings and everything else like that. This is real serious stuff. But it is still a school avoidance. We have to acknowledge that why is our child avoiding going to school? And I would, it needs exploring. It needs exploring with the school, it needs exploring with yourselves, it needs exploring with your children. And it came back that the biggest thing that stopped my daughter from going to school is she did not feel safe. Why didn't she feel safe? Again, we talked to the school. And 9 times out of 10 is because they're saying that they'll do one thing, but the information that they're saying they can do isn't then shared with every member of staff. It's put on the internal messaging system that the schools operate, whichever one they decide to operate, about a particular child and how they do. But there's nothing to make the teachers actually read that. It's a matter of, well, it's there for them to read. So therefore, your child will go into school thinking everything's sorted, and they're doing something that they that is not in the classroom. They come out of the classroom because they can't cope, and they've gone to a quiet space, or they're just walking around the school to deregulate, to sort of balance themselves and feel good before they go back to the lesson. And the teacher come along and shouted, "Why are you not in your lesson? Get into there," and everything's lost. Or whatever the case may be, but something can be said. And for my daughter, she had an area she could go and sit and do things, and a particular senior member of staff hadn't been informed about this particular arrangement and would challenge my daughter, and then that trust is gone again. Somebody shouted at me, this was arranged, they're not keeping their word, etc, etc. So there's all sorts of things that are in there. And when I come back to perceptions, I think is we don't need to get hung up on the words that are used. Again, at the conference, we talked about we're no longer having autism or having ADHD. We are autistic. The autistic adult or the ADHD adult is something that we have autism. We're not we are autistic. And a lot of people say, oh yes, they've got autism. No, we've not got autism, we are autistic. Again, does it really matter what the terminology is? What matters is to the individual. Yeah. So always ask, what is it? How would you like to be identified? For me personally, I want to be identified as me, Gordon. My daughter wants to be identified as her name, and so forth. So sometimes the diagnosis is there for us to help move forward. How we use that wording, I think it's for somebody like myself who's passing on information to yourselves. Maybe I have to be more acutely aware, but I'm more involved and interested in what is happening in schools, what is happening in the homes, how is it affecting our children, how is it affecting our family life, and not get caught up in the terminology. Because that's not the biggest important thing. Yes, when we're talking about the wider spectrum of autism or neurodiversity, there are going to be various groups that definitely feel that we have to say things in a certain way. And again, when we are doing videos or talking in that arena, we have to be aware. But when I'm talking to you as a parent, I'm really talking to you as, here's what's happening. This is the fact that your child isn't going to school, they're school avoiding, and we now need to know why that is happening. It's not necessarily a case of they're being truant or they're just being naughty or doing all this, and it's not just a matter of it's an easy life for you not to send them. You make conscious decisions based on evidence that you are gathering and that you have done within your own children, and you've sort of said, no, this is really causing too much trauma, I'm not sending my child to school. And then we inform schools what's going on. I think I used to phone 3-4 times a day to say, can't get me the first thing in the morning. I'm going to try at 11 o'clock, I'm going to try at 1 o'clock, I'll try at 2 o'clock, still can't get in. But my daughter always knew that on that particular day, my intention was to get her to school. Her hope was to get to school. She wanted to go to school. And so we were managing feelings. But 9 times out of 10, it never got to she could get into school. But it wasn't a case of, okay, you're not going back to school, therefore this is what's happening. It's a matter of, we would like you to get back to school. She wanted an education, but she wanted to feel safe. And over a long period of time, ended up going to hospital school and everything else. And she's now in her third year of university. So there are steps that do work. There's certain steps that I know can be taken. And it's focusing on the right things as to where are we. And yes, let's call it school avoidance when we're talking to schools and we're talking to things like that. It's the same as when you've got to the point of, actually, my child can no longer go to school, and so we are going to deregister them from the education system. If we do that, we've been told now that we are self-electing to home educate. Well, actually, we're not self-electing at all. We've had to take our children out of school because the environment that we are putting them into is either not suitable for them, or it's not safe for them, because the way that school's policies and the way that the school adapt the policies to the particular child as to be not flexible stops them from being able to get into school. Therefore, it's not a conscious decision that we've said we're going to take them out because we don't want to send them to school. It's a matter of, we have no choice because they cannot function in that environment as it is. So it's not self-electing, but the authorities call it self-electing if you deregister out of there. There's different roads and paths you can go down, but we've decided to deregister, therefore we've self-elected. But have we really? I don't think so. But again, that's a terminology that's being used. So I don't get hung up on it. It's just a matter of, that's what you want to do, that's fine. This is what we've done. And I can live with that. And it allows us to move forward and focus on what we need to focus on, which is getting our children the education that is right for them. Doesn't necessarily mean school, because as I've said before, 9 times out of 10 from the children that I have spoken to through PACT is that, do you want an education? They come back and say yes. Do you want to go to school? They say no, because the system isn't right for them. So again, we look at how can we provide the education that they need. If it's not in an educational setting, where is it? How do we do it? And things like that. So that was a little bit of a rant, but it was, I thought it was an important point, and I was appreciative of the email to raise this particular subject, because I think it is one that parents can get hung up on a lot, is to, well, we're not avoiding them, we're not stopping them from going to school, they just physically can't, and I acknowledge that, but I also want you to not get hung up on these sort of things. It's important, but we are dealing with education systems that are using these words, so we can use them as well. We know ourselves where it is, and that's what I'd like to focus on. So thank you for your time this morning, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.